Hey brother, the members of our community have asked me to make this very video because at the end of the day, I'm in a 5.5 year relationship, and in the past I really struggled to find good masculine role models, right? I saw all these degenerates on social media and I couldn't relate to them. Their principles and their advice didn't fit to my personal values about relationships and about life in general, and it was hard for me to actually find any good advice. So today I want to share with you some crucial lessons that have helped me to not only have a relationship at 22 years old that has lasted for over 5.5 years, but also that is thriving after 5.5 years, that is passionate, that is loving, that is deep after 5.5 years, and honestly better than ever after 5.5 years. So the thing is this: I put healthy masculinity in the title of this video because I think it describes it well, but I want to start off in this video with saying there is no such thing as toxic masculinity or toxic femininity. That doesn't exist. Masculinity or femininity, sexual energy, is not toxic. What's toxic are some of the people, the loud minority that nowadays you see on social media. Both men and women, mostly men because they're just louder and more aggressive. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean that masculinity or femininity is toxic. Not at all. It is not. I want to make that very, very clear. But you might be in a situation right now where you don't really know where you fit on that spectrum between masculine and feminine. And to be honest, a couple of years ago, I wasn't either. I'll be completely honest with you. I was struggling with figuring out who I am, which every human is. But at the end of the day, I really struggled a lot with figuring out, am I more masculine? Am I more feminine? And that made me very insecure, first of all, in my own life and also in my relationship, right? And at the end of the day, man, it made me anxious in the relationship, and I'm naturally a more anxious person. Now I've gone to a way more secure place when it comes to attachment styles and all that stuff in terms of relationships. But in the past, I was really anxious. And not knowing whether I'm masculine or feminine and whether my girl is more masculine or more feminine, just because I didn't understand sexual energy, right? Masculine energy, feminine energy, the thing that you name that is pretty much just sexual energy, right? It's just the word that people use for this, or not even the word that people use, but just that's what it's named. At the end of the day, I didn't know where I was on that spectrum, and to be honest, I did fear that my girl might leave me for someone who knows where he is at and who knows and who lives more of those more masculine principles, right? And of course, the degenerate people on social media, I won't say any names, but you get who I'm hinting at, right? They did contribute to this. I'll be completely honest. They did contribute to this a lot, actually. But at the end of the day, I still was that insecure guy just because I didn't know, like, where am I at here? And it really not just made me insecure, but also kept our relationship from going deeper. It kept us from going deeper into love and from really building more trust and building more of a connection as lovers. Now the thing is, because of the nature of social media, we see more of these degenerate, like I said, this loud minority of just people, men arguing how bad women are and women arguing how bad men are, when at the end of the day, both of those are just not true. And you'll never meet a person like that in real life. I have never met a person like that in real life, right? That's the thing. These people only live on the internet, and these people also only seem to express their opinions like that on the internet. And the thing is this is a real problem. This is keeping young men and young women from really figuring out, first of all, who they are, of course, but also from growing up. It keeps young guys from growing into men. It kept me from growing more into a man. To be honest, when I listened to these people, and I did listen to these people, right? They did get me off my path, if I'm being completely honest. What happened often is I listened to them and then I acted just boyish in my own life, but also in my relationship. I remember one specific scenario where it was 9:30 at night. Me and my girl were lying in my bed. This was like 2-3 years ago probably. And we had some argument. I was a bit pissed. She became a bit emotional. And I just simply didn't know how to handle that side of her, that femininity, right? That emotionality. And what happened is I just got pissed off. I turned away in bed, right? I just faced the wall instead of facing her, and just went to sleep. And she probably lay there. I'm German. English is not my native language, but she was lying there probably for like 30 minutes to an hour, just not being able to fall asleep, overthinking stuff, because I was acting so immaturely. And yeah, I do regret that. I'll be completely honest. And it makes me ashamed to even admit that that was me a couple of years ago. Now the thing is, as soon as I found more maturely masculine, healthy masculine role models who are not degenerate, who actually fit my values, which I consider quite common and good values, right? Suddenly, everything changed in my life. I became a lot more mature in that relationship. I acted more mature in my own life. And not only that, but I felt more whole. I felt more powerful, more purposeful. And to be completely honest with you, it just felt right. That's how I knew, like, this is what I want. It just felt right. I just felt good about doing the things that I saw these role models do, right? And I'll tell you a few of those later on, by the way. The thing is this, not only that happened, but at the same time, like I said, this was like 2-3 years ago, so I was like 20, 21. Up until that age, I have not been able to grow a beard. I'm turning 23 in a week. My beard is full now. And funnily enough, exactly at the moment when I started listening to these people and started acting more like them, started studying them, my blonde fluff that people used to bully me about turned into a full beard. My voice got deeper. I became more confident in who I am. And yeah, it really changed me physically, changed me mentally, changed me emotionally, changed me spiritually. And at the same time, the effect this had on my relationship was immense. Because before that, my girl would notice that I was trying to act like Andrew Tate, for example, right? And she could notice that, and she would see right through that. And she would see right through that, right through the fact that I was doing that out of insecurity, right? Out of fear of losing her, or out of fear of her losing attraction. The moment I started studying more maturely masculine people and started studying, and by the way, I'll say more on Andrew Tate later because I actually have an interesting opinion on this guy, I think. But the moment I started acting more like these more mature, healthy masculine people, what happened is she gained more respect for me, I gained more respect for myself, I got more admiration from her, and our whole relationship grew deeper, grew more loving, grew more connected, grew more... We got more attraction out of the whole thing, day to day, but also sexually. And in the end, it really just... It made me secure in who I am, and that really led to an immense improvement in our relationship. Now, if you want to do that same transformation, but way quicker than I did, because for me it took years, then you can book a free call with me, link in description. But anyway, what I noticed through that is I should have just listened to people, and this sounds so obvious, but I should have just listened to people who are where I want to go, right? These degenerates on social media who say like, oh, I have a body count of 200 and it's okay and all that kind of stuff. I'm not religious, by the way. I just say this out of my own values, right? But the thing is this, why would I listen to those? They didn't even have the long-term, thriving, attractive relationship that I wanted for myself. So why did I even listen to them? And here's where I found those more healthy, mature, masculine role models. Specifically one of them. It's not on social media. It's not actually in real life. It's in movies. And this might come as a surprise to you, but if you think about it, most people will say, oh, but a movie character, that's not authentic, right? That's not a real person. Think about it. There are hundreds of people figuring out how can we make this movie character as authentic to his role as possible. The actor, the director, the guys who do the makeup, the guys who set up the whole scene, who set up the lighting, who set up the background, all that stuff, the editors. Hundreds of people on a big production of a movie think about how can we make this character as authentic as possible. On social media, even with me, you only see one side of me. Not as in a movie, where you see every side of a movie character just because that's a good story then, right? And so there's one character in specific that kind of launched this whole story for me, this whole journey for me. Because one day I just realized, fuck, there's this one movie character that since I was a child, since I was like 11, 12 years old, and watched these movies for the first time, I've always loved this character, and now I know why. This character is Aragorn from The Lord of the Rings. I love this character since I like literally 11, 12 years old. And what I did was, and I'm not even kidding, this is a bit autistic, but what I did in the end was I watched all of these 3 movies, Lord of the Rings, twice, and I took notes. A lot of notes. I literally paused every movie, like every 2 minutes I paused the movie and wrote down something like Aragorn did this and I can do this in that way in my own life, and reflected on this whole thing. And that really gave me a great perspective. What's funny is, after I did that whole thing, a friend of mine told me, yo bro, you do realize that people have made videos on why Aragorn is like the most masculine figure in movies, or like the most healthy masculine depiction of masculinity in movies, right? It's no coincidence, man. And it's also no coincidence, I think, that I read a book shortly after that, which is named King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, which is written by 2 people who have studied the masculine sexual essence, and have come up with these 4 archetypes: the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover, for that masculine energy. Aragorn represents all of them. But the most important thing is he grows in all of them throughout these movies. You learn more about him throughout these movies, right? And for example, I think the most obvious example is the king, right? He becomes the king at the end of those movies. But he's not at the start. And he's afraid of taking that responsibility of leading his people from the start of these movies. And more, it just, you notice it come out through those movies, right? You realize like, oh, he's actually really afraid of taking that responsibility, and that makes him very human, makes him very relatable, right? Because we're all afraid of taking responsibility, but it's a core pillar of masculinity. Now, initially I would have given you a few more other examples, but while I was thinking about making this video, a friend of mine named Ben, great fucking guy, he sent me a podcast and was like, bro, I think you might need this for this video. I won't tell you who this podcast was with and who this podcast was from just yet. I'll tell you in a second. But they talked about, or the guest on that podcast talked about integrating the masculine and the feminine energy within a man. And by the way, you most likely know this guy. He's extremely famous, he's very well known, and I want to read you a quote from him that he said on that podcast. He said, "A real man is confident and comfortable enough to embrace the feminine energy he has in him. If he's emotional, let it out, but also have that masculine side and be like, I'm gonna be emotional right now, but I'm still gonna go and fuck shit up right now." The guy who said this is Chris Bumstead, Mr. Olympia, the bodybuilder that every 14-year-old who makes these Sigma male edits on YouTube uses for their edits, for their lone wolf Sigma male grind set videos. This guy said that we need, as men, to integrate the masculine and the feminine within us. Isn't that interesting? This super successful, of course super jacked guy who has a great woman by his side, who's becoming a father right now. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that interesting? And the thing is this, he's very right. If you look at the more spiritual background behind masculine and feminine energy, what you often realize is people on social media, they talk about, oh, men are 100% masculine, women are 100% feminine. That is not the truth. That's simply not the truth. Every human has parts of him that are more masculine and parts of him that are more feminine. Every human isn't leaning, or most, I don't think there's any human, at least I haven't met any human, who leans 100% to the masculine side or 100% to the feminine side, right? And so every one of us has both of these sexual energies within us, and we need to learn to integrate both of them, because otherwise we will be missing something within us. And now I want to read you another quote from the host of this podcast, Chris Williamson. It was on the Modern Wisdom podcast. Listen to that episode if you haven't. It's actually great. Chris Williamson, just a couple minutes after Chris Bumstead said what I just read to you, was holding two opposing thoughts in your mind at the same time is the most difficult thing you can do in 2023. That's when this podcast was recorded. I want to be strong and powerful, but open and vulnerable. And I want to give you another quote by a mentor and maybe kind of friend by now, named Ryan. He runs a YouTube channel as well, named The Conscious Man. He has some great stuff on there, check it out. What Ryan said is, consume the meat, spit out the bones. And what both of these quotes from Chris Williamson and from Ryan combined say is pretty much make your own philosophy. Listen to different people and have opposing thoughts in your mind. That's okay. That is not a bad thing. You're not wrong if you think you want to be strong and tough and at the same time vulnerable and maybe like arts, right? Maybe like nature. That's not a bad thing, man. Make your own philosophy. Look at people like Andrew Tate. Just because I don't agree with Andrew Tate's image of relationships and the message he spreads about relationships, right? Just because I don't agree with that doesn't mean that I can't listen to him about discipline, because obviously the guy knows a lot about discipline and I can learn from that. So listen to people like Andrew Tate, Hamza, Aragorn, Chris Bumstead, Chris Williamson, your dad, your friends, and take the parts where you're like, this fits into my image, this fits into my philosophy of life and of masculinity and into my values, my morals, my virtues. This fits into who I want to be and what I want to stand for. Because at the end of the day, that is what role models are for. They're not there to just be modeled and be lived after 100%. They're there to give you some inspiration on how you can live your life. That's how you should treat role models. Don't do something 100%, don't live 100% like some movie character. You're gonna turn into a huge fucking geek. But take the parts where like, I need that right now. I can improve in that, right? And then model that. And then implement that into your life and study how these people do that. Or these movie characters, whatever you choose as your role model, how they do that. Now, if you're the guy right now who's in a relationship where he loves his woman, but he feels like that relationship is slowly fading, slowly dying, what I can offer you is a free call with me. That call is there for us to figure out what you struggle with, what your goals are for that relationship, and whether I can help you. So if you know that your relationship is kind of dying right now, but you love this woman and you want to be with this woman and make it work with her, but not just make it work, you want to build a thriving, passionate, sexy, long-term relationship with her. The relationship that both you and her deserve, then book a call with me right now and I'll help you. You have nothing to lose with this call, only something to gain. I'll see you in there. Have a good day. Bye.